Don't bet today trying to catch up. That's a fool's way to try to make money. Appreciate you joining us. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify now as well. And again later today right here on SportsGrid. Have a great day.
Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback, and quite frankly, he doesn't get enough grace, I should say, for saying, I win football games. Like, what would you rather? We go play Mahomes, and, oh, man, 41-40, Hurts, 375, 4 touchdowns, they lost. Boy, that guy's good. Or no, hey, you know what? I'm going to play within myself. I'm not going to turn the football over. I'm going to play within the game script here, and we're just going to win. Doesn't matter who gets the accolades.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The biggest games, the biggest bets that you need to know. So much fun already, Joe. I feel like we got a lot of information now.
Yeah. Good games, not great, but again, it's college football. You can bet on them, nothing better.
Bet it, win it. By the way, and I always like to say this, and it's true. Like, you can have the worst game in the world. You cash your ticket, it's like a Picasso. Like, that game was the best game I ever watched in my life.
Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Especially when you're hitting parlays.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Two favorites are still the two favorites. So for me, it's just whether or not you got Herbert at a better price or if you think there's a better price to get at this point. But I mean, with the way Josh Allen plays and generally Lamar Jackson, it still does appear to be a two-player race. The only thing, obviously, this is an injury league, Adam, and in the NFL, an injury that keeps you out 4 or 5 games, all of a sudden, those odds will shift.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
The MetLife turf curse strikes again. Plus changes for the Mets after baseball's second highest payroll missed the playoffs. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington. Thanks so much for joining us to start your week. As each and every weekday, we're chatting the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have former LPGA star Michelle Wie West with her thoughts on the U.S. losing the Ryder Cup and the future of women's golf. But first, let's dive into the shoot-around.
Yeah, very NFL-heavy shoot-around today, Renee, after the Cowboys and the Packers ended Micah Parsons' big Dallas return in a 40-40 tie. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones didn't mince words afterwards as to why he paid Dak Prescott a major contract but did not for Parsons, which led him to be traded to the Packers. Jones told reporters, quote, "It's very simple. Dak was indispensable in my mind, and Micah wasn't." Now, Parsons and Jones didn't interact pregame, and Parsons even admitted he hasn't spoken to Jones in months. He did, though, get that very key sack against Dak Prescott in overtime, which I think kind of saved the game there. But
a sack that Dak mentioned possibly was not an actual sack. But either way, it was great football, just not a great football result.
Yes.
And when you look at, the fact we had about 650 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, yet it was a tie. We did all that to finish where we started. Controversial calls. NBC rolled out the red carpet with their Sunday night crew. And, of course, even the announcement of Bad Bunny for Super Bowl halftime show, that all the cards were aligned, but we just did not get a result. So when you really look at it, who actually won in this Micah Parsons deal? Nobody as of now.
Right.
I know Jerry Jones said himself, they played he literally said this. They played, quote, 3.5 hours and tied. They got Micah, we've got what we've got, and we tied. But as you mentioned, he said it's also not personal when it comes to Micah. It was about the numbers. It made sense with Dak. He didn't feel like it made sense with Micah. So standing on that decision for Jerry Jones.
Maybe Jerry Jones feels mildly vindicated after this game, given all the heat that he had been taking, not rightfully so, I feel like, with the Micah Parsons trade, but it could have been worse if the Packers played like they did in week 1, where everybody thought the Packers were the best team to beat, and that wasn't the case on this game whatsoever.
Did in the long long run.
As you mentioned, the NFL announced during halftime of the Cowboys-Packers game that Bad Bunny will headline the Super Bowl 60 halftime show. The Puerto Rican star said in a statement, quote, "What I'm feeling goes beyond myself. It's for those who came before me and ran countless yards so I could come in and score a touchdown." Now, the three-time Grammy winner recently wrapped up a 2-month residency in Puerto Rico, and he hosts SNL's 51st season premiere on October 4th. I don't think a lot of people had Bad Bunny on their bingo card. Most people, I think, were focusing on Adele and Taylor Swift for so long.
Titi me pregunto, but I won't say the whole song. I love Bad Bunny, and I'm so excited for this because a lot of people are saying they don't know Bad Bunny, they don't know his music. First of all, don't talk about you don't know the Spanish. I know there are a lot of people that don't know songs that are in English, myself included. But he is someone that has the highest streams ever, along with Drake and Taylor Swift. He's had the most streamed album of all time. He's also been on record, has the highest for most streamed artist on Spotify for 3 consecutive years. There are plenty of people around the world who know who Bad Bunny is, and he hasn't been performing in America because of ICE. He's talked about that, yet here he is performing at the Super Bowl. In today's climate where our culture and country is, I think it's massive. Now, I'm interested to see, as Kendrick Lamar last year performed, we saw him bring out celebrities like Samuel L. Jackson and Serena Williams, and he had about 133.5 average million viewers. Who will Bad Bunny bring out?
Great question.
And what will that number of viewership be? Because I think it's gonna be big.
I agree. Well, MetLife Stadium is struck again, everyone, as ESPN's Adam Schefter says Giants wide receiver Malik Nabers suffered a season-ending torn ACL in New York's first win against the Chargers, and that reignited the debate about the dangers of playing on artificial turf. Former Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. posted on X after Nabers' injury, saying, quote, "Dear NFL, please, please, please get rid of the turf." He added later, quote, "Death life has taken too many talented players away from the game." Now, in 2023, The Athletic said 83% of NFL players surveyed in a poll said playing on turf was a real concern.
And it's been a concern already in soccer, but it's now actively affecting football as well, because you can tell Sunday in that game versus the Chargers immediately was an ACL. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, since that turf was installed in MetLife in 2020, there's been so many players. Aaron Rodgers in 2023, Tank Dell, that massive injury last season for the Texans. It's been Nick Bosa, the list goes on, and it's time for them to really consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the MLB playoff picture is all set, so let's take a look at this and more in today's main event. All right, let's bring in FOS reporter Eric Fisher. So, Eric, now that the playoff matchups are all set, what do you think is the biggest storyline now heading into the wild card week?
I think one of the big stories is the economic upheaval that we see. We've got a bunch of low-budget teams, most notably the Guardians and the Reds in the field, some big-budget teams like the Mets out. What the long-term impact of that is going to be, we're still going to play that out, and we've got a labor negotiation next year. But for now, the field is wide open, and we've got some new players crashing the party.
Yeah, and which was the most surprising to you? We saw the Tigers collapse, although still able to squeeze out enough to get a postseason spot. We saw the Mets not make the playoffs at all. Even teams like the Astros that were very surprising for many. Which jumps out at you the most is in terms of just a failure, essentially, in how they ended the season?
I think the Mets-Reds situation, they ended up tied, and then the Reds got in with that last wild card slot by virtue of the tiebreaker. I think those two things together, it was a really surprising and interesting situation. Again, you got the Mets with number 2 payroll in the league, getting Juan Soto. They had the best record in the league in June, and then just collapsing from there. But on the flip side of that, everybody seemed to think that the Reds were maybe a year or two away. They've got Ellie De La Cruz, but a number of other younger talents still developing. But they made a late push, and fair play to them for grabbing that last spot. Those two things kind of put together really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's just go into a little bit more about the Mets fallout here. Again, the second highest payroll team, the amount of money that they gave Juan Soto, and then literally just all they had to do was beat the Marlins, and they would have made the playoffs.
Mets are gonna
how do you sort of look at the offseason outlook for the Mets here, and where do you sort of see things shaking out with this team? Do you see any changes?
I think we're going to see a lot of changes. I think there's a lot of soul searching going on in Queens because there was so much hope and anticipation. They got Juan Soto, and again had that great start. the biggest attendance increase in the entire league. I know that the owner, Steve Cohen, had thought very highly of David Stearns, but you look at some of the moves that were made over the course of the season, particularly as some of the pitching issues became, more known and more manifest, and not being able to resolve that. And they went into this final series that you mentioned, needing just to grab a couple of wins, and they lost 2 out of 3 to a lesser team, or what we would think to be a lesser team. Again, there's going to be a lot of soul searching and a lot of unpacking as we see over the winter.
Even Alonso saying he's leaving.
Yeah,
too,
I feel like this could have been the straw that broke the camel's back, especially since the Mets have had multiple seasons where they've fallen short and underachieved expectations. But on the flip side, as we talk about payroll and just other teams that maybe surprised people, this is the beauty about baseball in terms of the postseason. It's anybody's game, and we always have a Cinderella team that makes that deep, unexpected run. Going into the start of it, who do you expect as that team going into this playoffs?
There's a lot of energy sort of rising around the Mariners. We talked a lot about Cal Raleigh here on the pod, and fair play to him. He's a great story, but there's a lot more on that team. They're deep. They're hungry. They've got their first division title in 24 years. We could be talking a lot about the Mariners here over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, the Mariners right now second best odds after your Phillies to win it all. Eric, in the 90 seconds or so I have with you, also just the rest of the matchups, do you feel like this is exactly what Rob Manfred wants going into this next big year in terms of changes for Major League Baseball? You get the Yankees and the Red Sox. You're getting great matchups across the board here.
Yeah, these initial 4 wild card series, there's not a dud in the batch. That, again, you got the Yankees, Red Sox, one of the great rivalries in sports, not just baseball. But a lot to like with Reds, Dodgers, Cubs, Padres. You got sort of the redux of the 1984 NL Championship Series, and 2 teams that are also sort of lurking below the surface and could make a deep run. And then we've got Guardians, Tigers, kicking it right back again after slugging it out for 6 months, and this great comeback by Cleveland. They're going to pick it right back up. Again, not a dud in the batch.
Yeah, as we put a bow on the regular season and look ahead to the postseason, what did you learn from this 2025 regular season for Major League Baseball?
Just a lot of the indicators are pointing up. Again, there's economic issues, there's labor issues hanging out there, but for now, attendance up a tick, the national television story up even stronger, local television story good. There's a lot of momentum behind baseball right now.
Absolutely. It's good to like Major League Baseball
Red
right
October's
now.
here.
Yes, it is. Eric Fisher, thank you as always, Eric. And coming up, after almost a dramatic comeback win for the U.S. at the Ryder Cup, we're going through all the things that happened over the weekend in the golf world with Michelle West when we return. Don't go anywhere.
So let's play a little game of buy or sell. It would appear from most of the reports, George, that Mike McDaniel is going to keep his job as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. This is a long season, though, and they're already 0-3. Buy or sell, McDaniel will be the Dolphins' head coach at the end of the season.
He's going to get fired. All right, it's either now, later in the season, at the end of the season. He's not making it to next year. So the only question is, do they let him go towards the end of the season here? New York, Carolina, Chargers, Cleveland, Atlanta, Baltimore, bye. Atlanta, Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington going into that bye. And that Washington game, by the way, is in Europe somewhere. So I don't think he survives that. I don't think he's going to survive the bye week. I think it's going to go 1-3 of those games, maybe even lose all 4 of those games. No. And I think they will trade some players away, so they're going to be a worse team than they are now here. No, I'm going to sell this. He does not make it to the end of the season. I think they're going to fire him after week 11, if I had to guess. I think it's the perfect spot because not only is there a bye week, tough schedule beforehand, but then you have New Orleans at home. Good place for a new coach to start.
My thing is this, George, and here's why I am going to buy this. I think he's going to make it through the year and then he's going to be fired. Is because I just think it is rock bottom right now. They're 0-3. So, are they going to lose 3 consecutive games again this season? I don't think so. I think they're going to win 6 games or 7 games, which tells me it's win, loss, 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 win, loss, loss, So I just think they make the change at the end of the year. If they're not going to make it now and they're 0-3, the only thing that I would say to caveat would be is if they lose in their next game. If they lose that next game, then 0-4, yes, I think it happens. I don't think they will, though. So I am going to buy this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone. Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the U.S. came up short after what could have been one of the biggest comebacks in sports history as Europe held on to win back-to-back Ryder Cups for some time. That hasn't happened in quite a while. So for more insights into this and more into the world of golf and so much more, let's bring in Michelle Wee West. Michelle, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. You were at the Ryder Cup this weekend. I'm curious your thoughts on it and the U.S.'s performance and almost the comeback victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on site Thursday and Friday. So Thursday was quite rainy, so I think it was a little washed out. Was there for Friday. And yeah, Sunday was very exciting. I kind of was like, oh, it's going to be. But then I was like, wait a second, we're not dead yet.
No.
There's still a chance. Are you telling me there's still a chance? I was like, we just need to win 10 out of 12. And it was very exciting. I mean, I turned the TV on when Justin Thomas was lining up his putt, and then I was like hyped. We're in. We needed to go to dinner, but we had it on our phone, like watching the streets of New York.
Right.
And it was very exciting. And that's exactly what I wanted to see on Sunday.
Yes, and we saw, I mean, that was one of the largest deficits going into the final day that Europe was holding. U.S. with that nearly triumphant comeback fell short, and that's what we should be talking about. Yet instead, we're talking a lot about the treatment to Rory McIlroy. We're talking about the fans booing. We're talking about some really unfortunate things that, honestly, I don't think made the golf world look great. What are your thoughts on what's typically a very confrontational, exciting Europe versus U.S. Ryder Cup that this year had the fans that stole the headlines?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think you're seeing this headline just in golf. I think you're unfortunately seeing this at a lot of sports events, and I think it just comes down to the sentiment where fans sometimes don't see us as living, feeling human beings. When you see the rope, you see the grandstand, they don't think, I mean, this is a lot to do with like online, we can go like really deep into this, but I just feel like a lot of times they just don't see us as these people that have feelings, that have families, So I do feel really bad for the European team and how they were treated. I feel like as an American, I feel like I should apologize. But I think the fans at Bethpage were always going to be a topic of conversation. I think we kind of knew that going in. And, Ryder Cup, Solheim Cup, it's always tense, right? When there's so much on the line. I mean, the players are feeling the pressure, the fans are feeling the pressure. It's just a big pressure situation. But I think Sunday, going back to like the positive sides of things, I think that, it seems like a lot of the players hugged it out on Sunday. Didn't seem that there was any confrontation there. But yeah, it was some amazing golf being played on Sunday. Not to brag, but I was on the Solheim Cup team when we won. I think 9 out of 12 was the biggest comeback.
Yes,
and
you were.
Being part of that personally, I was just so hyped for the U.S. to be like, we can do this. We have a chance still. And just kind of personally knowing the players as well too. You feel it. You feel the amount, the pressure. And when Justin Thomas made that putt, it was like you felt it around the entire golf course, which is like kind of incredible to see because golf is such a solo sport, and it's amazing. I mean, again, like this isn't just happening in one little arena.
Right.
You're kind of forgetting that this is happening hundreds and hundreds of yards away, yet simultaneously things are shifting all across the course, and I think that's just so magical. Something about that is so magical.
There's also been a lot of chatter about that injury envelope rule. Keegan Bradley, saying, look, I think this needs to be revisited. Others saying, look, this is the rule. But obviously the Europeans used it to their advantage. What do you think? Does this rule need to stay, or does it need to be changed? Any thoughts on that?
I have flip-flopping views on that. I think we were in a scenario where a player unfortunately had to pull out and we lost the point at Solheim, and that hurts a lot. So to be on the other side,
sure,
I get it, but it's just like a really American thing to be like, we should have won this.
Yeah, exactly. Get rid of it. Get
It's all because of the injury.
It's all because of the injury envelope.
Nothing else.
But I think it just creates also a really awkward scenario for the captains as well too. And I'm like putting myself in Luke and Keegan's situation where they have to write a name.
Right.
Like beforehand, it's just like it sucks for everyone involved. And like obviously Victor, that's not the way he saw it as well too, and how awful he must have felt to just give up a point or a half a point, and he would have felt even worse. And again, is it fair to then, if the amulet rule wasn't the case, is it then fair to like try to force him to play? Like, so
you see all the angles. You see all the
sides, all the sides. But yeah, that would have been helpful for us yesterday.
Exactly. Well, I love the fact, as you've hinted to several times within your own career, you've been a part of so many monumental moments in golf, period, and have had such an incredible career. You're getting involved in so many components now as you are retired. And I'm curious your thoughts. Since retiring in 2023, what are the biggest changes that you've seen, and what are those areas that you still need to see change in terms of women's golf in their growth as well?
Yeah, it's been really fun. I feel like when you're playing professional sports, it's all consuming. It's 100% of your time, and you feel guilty kind of spending your time anywhere else. So it's been very freeing to be in this phase of my career where I kind of have the time. Obviously, being a parent is all consuming as well too, but it's really fun to kind of dive into how can I help better the tour, how can I help better women in sports, and being a host of the Mizuho America's Open, my LPGA tournament, it's been really fun to be part of the behind the scenes and to see what's really going on behind the curtains, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Well, given the fact that there's so much attention in the WNBA, the NWSL is getting these really good media deals, do you feel like the LPGA is getting as much attention as it should, given the fact that we're getting so interested in women's sports right now, or is there still more work to do right now?
I think there's a lot of work to do still. No matter how much the boom is, I think the number still hasn't changed. It's still 4% of the total media. So we have to work on better broadcasts, better, especially just in golf in general. We need to have better broadcasts. We need to have better broadcast times. Tape delay is just not acceptable. Who wants to watch tape delay sports anymore when everything's about now? And I think live sports is such a commodity that we have to be able to bottle that up and capitalize on it. So yeah, I think we can do better, and I think we will. We have a new commission on our tour, and I think there's going to be an up and up.
Is that what helped also encourage you and inspire you to get involved in investments, whether it's in Together, which is covering all things women's sports, or even TGL, which is a whole new exciting venture in golf?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's been really great in my post-retirement career to get really in the nitty-gritty of trying to get things done. Instead of just saying it, just hopefully I can back it up with my actions and what I'm doing. And I love what Together is doing. I've always been a fan, and to be finally part of that team, it's been amazing. It's amazing to see what they have done. In addition to the shirts, in addition to the slogans, and what they have done with the storytelling. It's really great to see what they have done, and I'm excited to even grow that further.
I'm excited to see what you continue to do as well. So excited.
Michelle Wee West, thank you so very much for joining us. We got a lot more show headed your way right after this quick break.
Two favorites are still the two favorites. So for me, it's just whether or not you got Herbert at a better price, or if you think there's a better price to get at this point. But with the way Josh Allen plays and generally Lamar Jackson, it still does appear to be a two-player race. The only thing, obviously, this is an injury league, Adam, and in the NFL, an injury that keeps you out 4 or 5 games, all of a sudden, those odds will shift.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Talk to me. Who are some of the guys? What are the keys for a victory here?
Well, Joe, we have this one player. It's like having Tom Brady at quarterback in the Super Bowl. We've got Scotty Scheffler. I think the first key is that, and this is going to sound crazy, but I think we should play him in all 5 matches. I'm just throwing it out there. 15 wins in 2 years. We got to get him out there.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They know the minutia of game time decisions, when to call timeouts, when the kick, go for 2, and all that other stuff better than the head coaches, because the head coaches aren't watching 30, 35 games like sports fans are between college football and the NFL. All the head coaches are doing are watching game films. They may be watching 30 game films, but they're not watching game management. So the fan does know.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Everything changed at that point. They went and got Jonquel Jones, and they really had that triple threat monster team. That second year they lost in the WNBA Finals, 3-1 against the Las Vegas Aces. Year 3, they finally get over the top hump. And you can question whether they should have won the title with that foul call late in Game 5 that sent Breanna Stewart to the foul line.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the Phoenix Mercury are headed to their 6th WNBA Finals and their first since 2021. That after knocking out number 1 seeded Minnesota 3-1. They're now going to face the winner of Tuesday's deciding Game 5 between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces. So for more on this, and of course, we're going to talk about the referee situation as well, let's bring in ESPN analyst Maria Marino. Maria, good to have you as always. We'll talk about the refs and Cheryl Reeve in a moment, but let's talk about how good of a win this was for Phoenix getting back into the WNBA Finals here.
This has been an incredible run for Phoenix already, and I think that their ceiling for sure is a championship. And the fact that they are now going to get a little bit of extra rest from whoever their opponent is going into the final series is going to be huge for them. And clearly their conditioning is on point. You've seen the physicality that they've been able to play with Alyssa Thomas really kind of being at the helm of that whole effort and that whole mentality. I mean, this is a crazy upset. This is a team, Minnesota, I mean, they were on the revenge tour all year long. I mean, best net rating in the league, easily best record, top defensive team, top offensive team. But when you have an injury to one of your key players, it can change everything. Yep. And it kind of did.
No, it's very true. Let's talk about the referees here specifically, because we know Cheryl Reeve, the coach of Minnesota, had to watch the game from a hotel nearby. She criticized the officials in that final game, but that's been a theme, Maria, this whole entire season from a lot of coaches out there. Based off of what happened, do you see changes in terms of how referees are calling games down the road, and does the WNBA do something about this?
Well, I think every league goes into the season, especially when they've been publicly called out by multiple coaches and talking heads about the officiating. They're going to be trying to see where they can improve, and particularly for the WNBA, which is a very rapidly evolving league, and we know about the rapid growth and popularity that is transpiring. And so a lot of these operations are trying to play catch up, I think, with how popular the league has become and the demand for it and the intense and increased scrutiny that comes with that sort of status. Now, I had read that the WNBA made an officiating administrative hire last offseason, but there are a few issues that I still think need to be addressed. And one of them is, the NBA has their, they have their last 2-minute report, which the W does not have. Yep. They also utilize an off-site replay review center. So whereas, there are sometimes controversial calls that the in-game crew are looking at, but sometimes it's hard to sort of take any subconscious bias out of a call that you just made. I think that's something they can look into. Sandy Brondello made a great point earlier in the year. The W has in the past been somewhat of a stepping stone to the NBA, and a lot of times WNBA officials are also officiating college basketball in their off season, and that it can be a totally different animal. So there's a lot to look at with regard to sort of the administrative side of officiating. The call was probably correct. I think I'm okay with that call. The unfortunate part is Nafisa Collier gets injured and is now out for the game. I'll just add this because there's been the NBA official referee account tweeted out about that this was the correct call, and it might well be the correct call, but we also have to recognize that the NBA official account is affiliated with the W, and might they want that to be understood to be the correct call. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything like that, but I mean, we also have to understand that too. That being said, I'm going all over this. I'm all over the place.
I love this. Okay. I love this. I love it. She's not done.
There's just a lot to unpack here, and anyone that tells you, oh, it's this way or that way and it's black and white, sorry, I disagree.
Definitely a lot to unpack. We've heard head coach Stephanie White come out for the Fever and say it's happening all throughout the league, all teams, all players, everyone. There's got to be some accountability. We've heard Becky Hammon from the Aces mention as well about it just feels like this physicality would not be allowed in the NBA. We've heard coaches, players, even a general manager that said he feels the officiating is years away from being at the level you would expect it at the WNBA. As the league continues to grow in every possible metric on and off the court, officiating does seem like it's something that's obviously a point of contention and needs to be fixed as well.
We could talk about this for hours. Guys, this was a great conversation. Yes. Maria Marino, good stuff as always, Maria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Always happy to have it. And guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. Renee and I are back for more fun tomorrow. We'll see you later.